Hi guys, I'm here to bring you your This Week at Access video for the week of March 9th to March 13th. So this is going to be week 2 of our strongman training cycle. And what you're going to notice is there are multiple different ways we're going to try to progress from last week. So on some of our lifts, the rep count is going to decrease, therefore the weight should increase to kind of keep that heavy stimulus going. On others, the reps are going to stay the same, but your goal is going to be to increase the weight that you used. And let's just get into it. I'll explain it as we go. So Monday we have back squat, 4 sets of 4 reps. Last week was 4 sets of 6. So this is 4 sets of 4. You should be going heavier. These should be challenging reps as long as your form is good. If you are still working on your squat technique, I would much prefer you get those mechanics down before increasing the weight and therefore the intensity. But if your form is solid, these should be a challenging set of 4 reps, especially on that final set. You should be pretty close to failure. As Jason likes to say, you should be feeling a little nauseous when you're done with it, but he's not wrong. And then we have an EMOM 16 of 10 American kettlebell swings on minute 1. Minute 2, we'll have 15 push-ups. Minute 3, 10 kettlebell curls. And minute 4, 15 goblet squats. And the RX weight for this one is 62 for men and 44 for women. So this workout should seem pretty similar to last week. Last week was an AMRAP format. This week is an EMOM format. So since there's built-in rest time, the load has increased. So last week, the RX weight was 53 for men, 35 for women. This week, it is 62 for men, 44 for women. So if last week you scaled the number of reps, say you did 10 push-ups instead of 15 push-ups, or maybe you did 7 kettlebell curls instead of 10 kettlebell curls. This week, use the same weight, but try to do the prescribed number of reps, if possible. If you did the prescribed number of reps last week, go heavier. Do that heavier load. There's built-in rest time with an EMOM, whereas an AMRAP, you're moving the whole time. There's built-in rest time with the EMOM. Try to go a little bit heavier. But as always, you can scale the weight/reps as needed. And there are a plethora of scaling options that your coach can go over in class for you. On Tuesday, we have strict press, 3 sets of 8 reps. So again, the reps went down. You should be going heavier than you did last week. Hopefully you left yourself some notes. This was really easy. That was a difficult set of 10, whatever. And remember, we are doing these from the floor. So you're going to clean it up into the front rack position and then do your strict press overhead. Then we have an AMRAP 16 of 10 pendlay rows, 10 dumbbell lateral raises, 5 weighted chin-ups, and 10 hanging leg raises. So the load and the rep scheme has stayed the same from last week. So our RX weight, we have 95 for men, 65 for women on the barbell, 25 for men, 15 for women on the dumbbell movements. However, this is an AMRAP format rather than a superset format. So last week was supersets. This week is an AMRAP. So try to use the same weight as last week and try to complete the reps with improved form. And maybe you'll get more than 5 rounds in. We will have the opportunity to go heavier on the pendlay rows and kind of push the load on those. And we will repeat this workout 4 weeks from now. Then on Wednesday, we have our Romanian deadlifts, 3 sets of 10 reps. So try to go a little bit heavier than you did on last week. And then we have our partner strongman prep circuit. So hopefully we kind of got some of the kinks out with that week 1. Remember, we're going to see this circuit or some variation of it. Maybe as the weather gets nicer, we'll switch it up a little bit so we can go outside. But it's going to be 40 seconds of work, 20 seconds of rest, 3 times through with our partner tire flips. Maybe last week you used the lighter tire. This week you're going to use the heavier tire. Or maybe you're going to try to do more tire flips in that 40 seconds. Station 2, we have heavy kettlebell swings. So either use the same weight as last week and try to do more reps if you're keeping track of your reps, or try to go heavier. For the most part, try to use a 53-pound kettlebell or heavier on this. Unless you have an injury or you're new and still learning your technique, focus on your technique, whatever. But if you are healthy and you have solid technique on these, push the weight a little bit. You should be fighting for those reps. You can't kind of let the kettlebell do the work. You're going to have to use those big, strong muscles in your glutes and hamstrings. Then we have our gorilla rows, again, either trying to do more reps or go a little bit heavier. We have our dumbbell clean and overhead press. Again, more reps, heavier weight, whatever. And then our hollow hold. So maybe last week you broke it up into 20 seconds and 20 seconds. Maybe this week you're going to try to do a full 40 seconds. Then we have our Zercher squats. So I hope you guys enjoyed these last week. Definitely something different, but it's always good. You have to embrace the challenge. Learning something new is good for us. Getting stagnant isn't good. You should always be trying to do something new. So we're going to do 3 sets of 10 reps again. So we're trying to get used to these and build upon the mechanics before we really start hammering that load and, hitting lower reps for higher weight. So if you had a hard time with these last week, it's okay if you stay with the same weight. But if your form was good, go ahead and try to go a little bit heavier for 10 reps this week. Then we have 5 supersets of 15 dumbbell push-ups, 100-foot farmer's carry, and 20 alternating dumbbell front rack lunges. So last week it was an EMOM. This week we're going to do it superset format. So you don't have that rest time in between movements now. You're going to do the movements back to back to back. Also, instead of suitcase carries from last week, we have farmer's carry. So select a weight that is appropriate for you, and then we'll see this one again later in the cycle. Then we have bench press, 4 sets of 4 reps. So last week we did 4 sets of 6. You didn't technically have to pause, but hopefully you did. You should have been pausing if you want to get stronger. This week we are below 5 reps. You need to pause at the chest. And then don't forget, on our final set, we have that drop set. So hopefully you stripped the bar. Maybe if you left 10s on or 25s, or maybe even went with the empty bar. But if you were within that 10 to 20 rep range on your drop set, you were probably in a good place. You were at the correct weight. If you were doing less than 10, probably, if you're at 8, 7, 8, probably okay. Try to shoot for 10 this week. If you only got 2 or 3, probably a little bit too heavy for the drop set. Maybe go a little bit lighter. Try to get in that 10 to 20 rep range. If you got 20 reps or above, you need to go heavier on that drop set this week. But if you're in that 10 to 20 rep range, try to beat your score from last week. If you're over 20, try to go heavier. This should be going to failure. What does that mean? You cannot pick it up off of your chest. Your partner has to pick it up for you. If you're able to rack your bar at the end of your drop set, you were not at failure. So hopefully you got a good feel for what failure feels like last week. Then we have 4 supersets, same as last week. So this is another one we're going to repeat week to week, and you are going to try to add 1 rep to each movement from last week if you are able to do it with good form. So stick with the same weight. What it's showing in SugarWOD is going to be 5 strict pull-ups, 20 weighted sit-ups, 10 dumbbell bent over rows, and 20 alternating dumbbell hammer curls. If you're adding 1 rep from last week, it'll be 2 for the curls. But if you're adding 1 rep, it'll be 6 strict pull-ups, 21 weighted sit-ups, 11 dumbbell bent over rows, and 22 alternating dumbbell hammer curls. So those are your workouts for the week. I hope you are able to improve in one way or the other. And I hope you have a great week of training. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to reach out.